All right, today we are diving into one of the most profound texts in all of Buddhism. It's called the Diamond Sutra. And we're going to explore its really radical teachings on what true faith is and, maybe more importantly, the art of letting go. It all kicks off with a very human, very relatable question. Have you ever heard an idea that was so deep, so completely mind-bending, that your first thought wasn't, I don't get it, but more like, wow, will anyone ever be able to get this? Well, that's the exact doubt that sparked this entire teaching, and it came from one of the Buddha's own disciples. Okay, so let's get into this. The disciple's name was Subhuti, and he was actually known for having this incredibly deep understanding of the concept of emptiness. But even he was worried. The Buddha's teachings on formlessness and non-attachment, well, they seemed almost too advanced, too difficult for ordinary people to really wrap their heads around. And what's so fascinating here is that this isn't the question of some skeptic. Not at all. This is the genuine concern of a dedicated student who's afraid that this beautiful, liberating wisdom might just be lost on future generations, people living in a much more complicated world. He's basically asking, is this teaching just too hard for the future? But the Buddha's response is just incredibly reassuring. He doesn't brush off Subhuti's concern. Instead, he offers this amazing prophecy about the very nature of faith itself. He's firm, but you can also hear the gentleness. The Buddha is completely confident that even in the most distant, most difficult times, people who are capable of understanding this profound truth will absolutely show up. But how could he be so sure?
Well, he explains it through this idea of time. Buddhist cosmology talks about these 5 declining periods, starting from an age of pure enlightenment all the way down to an age of total conflict. But the Buddhist says that even in this final, most chaotic era, people with deep, good roots will emerge. Think of good roots as a kind of positive foundation, built up through good actions over many lifetimes, that lets them hear these words and just instantly get it. They're ready for it.
So what is it about these people? What allows them to have such an unwavering faith, even when the world around them is a mess? The answer? Well, it lies right at the very heart of what the Diamond Sutra is all about. And this is the absolute crucial point. The Buddha defines this true faith not as believing in something, like a dogma or a person, but as the actual practice of believing in nothing fixed. It's the ability to let go of all the concepts, all the labels, all the little mental boxes we try to cram reality into. And he lays out the process so brilliantly. It's like you're shedding these conceptual layers one by one. First, you let go of the idea of a fixed, permanent me, okay? Then you let go of the idea of a separate you. But then it gets really radical. You even have to let go of the idea of the Dharma, the teaching itself. And then you even let go of the idea of not the teaching. You let go of absolutely everything. So why is this so important? Well, this idea pops up in other Buddhist teachings too. For example, the Lankavatara Sutra basically says our entire reality is a projection of our mind. When our mind creates a concept, self, other, good, bad, we get attached to it, and that attachment is the root of all our suffering. So when the mind just stops creating these fixed ideas, the attachments and the suffering, they just stop, they cease. Now, I know this is a really abstract idea, so to make it crystal clear, the Buddha uses this absolutely brilliant and timeless metaphor. This might be one of the most famous lines in all of Buddhism. The teachings are a tool. They're a raft to get you across a river of suffering to the other shore, to enlightenment. But once you've made it to the other side, what do? You don't strap the raft to your back and carry it around for the rest of your life, right? No, you leave it behind. You're done with it. It's the exact same idea here. Clinging to the words, the scriptures, the rituals, even the Buddha's own words, is like staring at the finger instead of looking at the moon it's pointing to. The whole point isn't to memorize the teaching, it's to have a direct experience of reality, completely free from concepts. So, is this just a beautiful philosophy, or can a person actually live this way? Let's look at the incredible, true story of someone who embodied this wisdom completely, especially when facing his own death.
So meet monk Sengzhao. He lived back in 4th century China. He was this brilliant scholar, a top disciple of the great translator Kumarajiva. And he became famous for his mastery of this concept of emptiness, which is exactly what the Diamond Sutra is all about.
His life was short but unbelievably intense. He came from a poor family, but he fell in love with Buddhist philosophy and quickly became one of its greatest minds. But his story takes a really tragic turn when he ends up offending the king and is sentenced to death. And that was his age, 31. Just think about that. At an age when most of us are just starting to figure things out, Sengzhao was facing his own execution with a level of wisdom that is it's astonishing. So what happens next is the ultimate test of everything he understood. As he's waiting for the executioner's blade, he doesn't pray, he doesn't despair. He picks up a brush, and he writes a poem. Just take a moment and let those words sink in. The sheer tranquility, the absolute clarity in these lines, written literally in the shadow of death, it's breathtaking. This isn't just philosophy anymore. This is a lived, unshakable truth. You see, this poem is the Diamond Sutra in action. He starts with the 4 elements and 5 aggregates. That's just the Buddhist way of talking about our physical body and our mental stuff, thoughts, feelings, perceptions. And he says they are without a master and originally empty. What he means is there's no permanent me or soul that owns this stuff. So when the blade falls, it's not killing a self. It's just an event, as insubstantial and as fleeting as trying to slice the wind in springtime. And this is the ultimate takeaway, right? Sengzhao wasn't just being brave, he was free. His deep experiential understanding that there was no fixed, permanent self to be killed meant there was nothing to fear. He had let go of the most fundamental concept we all cling to, the idea of me. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If our sense of self is as formless and ungraspable as the spring wind, then what are all the blades, the insults, the failures, the losses that we fear so much in our own lives? What does it really mean to be cut?